Hey, kia ora everybody. I hope your first week of term has been going well. It was really great meeting you guys all on Monday and Tuesday at the workshops in Wellington and Auckland. So as promised, here's just a quick video taking you through the synthesizer features of Soundtrap and working through those stems, those tracks we got from Justin Bieber's Stay song. And so we can work on that together. So you can take it through a bit slower than maybe what we went through on Monday and Tuesday afternoon. So you got time to pause things. I do apologize for a bit of leakage. There is a trumpet ensemble chamber music rehearsal going on next door at the moment. I've been waiting for the last couple of hours for the other chamber groups to finish, and now another one started up straight away, so I'm going to push ahead. Hopefully it's not too distracting for you. Okay, so just a reminder that in the email link I'd given you, there's a Dropbox, a link to a Dropbox group of files where you can download all the notes from the workshop and all the resources that I used. And in the session 3 folder, there is the Justin Bieber Stay file. Now, if you use Logic, then there is the original Logic session that I got this MIDI file from, which is a YouTuber called 93 Acres, and I encourage you to look him up because he does really good deconstruction of pop tunes and shows you how to make them in Apple Logic. But most of us are not working in Logic. Well, I am, but most of you are not. We're going to look in here. We've got this Stay 2.mid. Now, if you are part of the Wellington workshop, then please make sure you go and get this new MIDI file, because this one is much simpler than what I had available to you on the Wellington workshop. I fixed it up overnight before I went to Auckland. And this, I've reduced the number of MIDI tracks that are in there to make it a bit clearer and a bit easier to use. So I encourage you to re-download the files so you get the Stay 2.mid. And that file we're going to bring into Soundtrap. Now I'm going to get rid of this session that I've already been working on. I'm going to start a new track, a new session. It's going to enter Studio, and I'm going to drag and drop that MIDI file that I downloaded there, drag and drop it in. Now, a reminder to you Windows users that when you download the files, they come all zipped up, and when you open the file, it doesn't automatically extract them or unzip them. You need to do that yourself for some weird reason. I don't know why Windows is like that. But you need to extract all the files to somewhere else before it will let you drag and drop them in, as I just did, into the window here. Gee, those trumpets are making quite a noise next door. Okay, the other thing we want to do is also drag in the audio files. So there's this one here, the full track. I'll just drag that one in first of all. And this is just the chorus section by itself. I will solo it by clicking on the headphone little icon there. I do the same thing I told you that I never would. But to make it easier for us to transcribe everything and to hear the individual tracks, I have created stems for each of the instruments in this session. And these are all here, the bass, the drums, and the keyboard. So by holding down Control on Windows or Command on Mac, you can click on each of them so they're all highlighted together, and I can drag and drop them in, making sure that I'm dropping everything at the very beginning of the session at bar 1. If things go in different places, then that will create issues. Also, don't feel like you need to delete any of the silence at the beginning. The silence is just there to help all the tracks line up for us, so don't feel like you need to edit the length of any of these audio or MIDI regions. Now I'm going to loop just this chorus section, so I'm going to click on this area at the top here, and I'm going to move that across. So this is this thing here, and I can now hear all of the tracks playing together. I do the same thing I told you that I never would. I told you I changed even when I knew I never could. So the first thing I want to do is to work out the little synth line that sounds like this. Now, to make it a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to drag the Stays Keys track up so that it's just below the Wave Surfing Bass track. Now, it's called Wave Surfing Bass because of the MIDI file it's come from. That's not a good descriptor because this is not a bass part. But if we listen to the two sounds, now we can listen to the Stays Keys. Stay Keys sounds easily just by clicking on the little headphones there. And now we can also listen to the original MIDI file. And we can hear it's a similar sound, but not exactly the same. So we now need to change the type of sound that's been generated by this MIDI track to try and match more closely the sound. Okay, so I'm going to do that by clicking over here on this. At the moment it says 808, which is a type of instrument that's been used. and it opens it up down here. Now in Soundtrap, we have the option, often on the right hand side here, have this more options button, and that will let us edit the type of sound. Now we don't unfortunately have this available with this kind of sound we've got at the moment, this bass electric Jacko chorus sound that's been set up. So I'm going to click on that area there, and I'm going to change this to Synths, and went into the leads category, and we just talked about in the workshop that the Lylish preset was one that was a pretty good one to start from, and it has got the more options down here which we can now click on to open up the synth below here. So let's have a listen to this now. I'm going to remove the delay and the reverb, so now we can just focus on the type of sound that we've got. Now, as I remember Tim pointing out in Auckland, the sound was a bit too broad, it's a bit too rounded. We want to go for something with a little more bite to it, a little more sharpness. So we're going to change this into oscillators down here. The oscillators are what generate the signal, which generate the sound. And in a synthesizer, there's usually two of them. And they have different types of waves. We have the triangle wave, the square wave, the sine wave. We get random noise, which we can ignore, and the saw wave. Now, this preset came with a triangle wave on one of them, which sounds like this by itself. By moving the mix slider to the top, we're just hearing oscillator 1. And then it has the sine wave on oscillator 2. We can hear that by moving the mix knob to the bottom, mix slider to the bottom. So we think it needs a little more sharpness, a bit more bite to it. So I might go and take the oscillator 2 and move that to a saw wave. Okay, let's compare that to the original sound. So that's got a lot more bite to it, but there's too much of a buzziness in the upper harmonics. And so this is where the filter section comes into it. And in Soundtrap, we really only use two knobs at the moment, for level 1 anyway. We use the cutoff and the resonance filter. So I'm going to get rid of some of the upper frequency buzz, those upper harmonics, by bringing the cutoff down. Let's see what that's done to it. So it's getting a little closer now. I think if we change the resonance knob, so we're getting there, maybe a little more of this. I encourage the students to play around at this stage, once we've gone through the cutoff and the resonance knobs, to go back and actually experiment with the balance of the oscillators, and also maybe change trialing, instead of a saw, try the square wave. That's not quite right, because that's making it sound a bit too video game-ish. Let's move it back to the saw wave. Okay, and then we're getting there. Now I want to remind you that in the download folder, there was this sounds progress chart. Now your students should be using this. So for example, every sort of thing that I've been doing here, where I've been trialing out the different types of oscillators, like the saw and the triangle and the sine waves, the students need to make note of what worked and what didn't work with them. And then over here, so firstly describing what they've done, second column, what worked, what didn't work. And the third one, how much does the changes that they've made make the sound progress from sounding nothing like it to being a perfect match? This is a really important sheet that students need to fill out as they do this, because this will help you through assessment and help you document the authenticity that they have actually done the work themselves and haven't got friends to do it, or they've found clues online that's helped them cheat. But this is actually going to help you demonstrate their authenticity, and it's also going to demonstrate their learning and make them very aware of everything that they're doing as they progress through. So let's just take that for now. Let's go back to over to Soundtrap. And so at the moment, if we listen to the sound, it's a bit too plinky for me, pomp, pomp. So it might be this resonance filter. Bit of there. good. And the other thing is just a slight little bit of extra sustain on the note compared to what we've got at the moment. So I'm going to over here come to the amp envelope. This part over here, I'm going to turn up the sustain and release a bit. It's probably a bit too much. As much as I like it, it's not the same as the original. Now just for a note, we're going to ignore the LFO sections. That'll be something we introduce into level 2 should we ever be allowed to teach the new level 2 NCA if it ever happens. Fingers crossed. They've said 2028, but who knows what's going to happen in the meantime. Anyway, best I don't get into politics at the moment, should I? Okay. Once we've gone through these sections here, we've got a sound which is pretty similar. So we have the option now to bring it back in a little bit of a reverb and a bit of delay. And once that's bedded down in a mix with the other instruments, that'll actually work quite well. One more thing which I want to show you, which I didn't go into on either of the workshops, is playing around with an equalizer to try and match the sound a little bit more. And if we look over here in the top right, we see up here we have this effects control. And when we click here on the effects, we can still use different types of effects here to alter the timbre of the sound. So if I just go to clean up, for example, we see the example of these EQs. If you've got the education version or a paid version of Soundtrap, this visual EQ is brilliant to use, but we can do a very similar thing with the parametric EQ. So when I listen to the sound at the moment, if I'm looking for more of a bite in the upper register, we have 3 bands of equalization here, the high section, the mid section, and the lows. So when we turn up the gain for one of these, that'll increase it. Keeping in mind that when these knobs are in the top position for the gain, that is when they are having no change. That doesn't mean zero sound, like that's not off. What it means is that it's either boosting if we move to the right, let me just zoom in a bit here, it means we're either boosting if we move it to the right, or we're cutting a certain specific frequency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it up so I can hear the changes that I make really clearly. We can hear it affecting the sound very similar to what the resonance filter was doing before. So trying to put more upper frequencies into the sound there. Try the mid-range. Actually going to pull that sound out of it by moving the gain slider to the left a little bit. But that's a bit more of an advanced thing we perhaps don't need to spend too much time on. But just putting it in there for those of you that know about using EQ or other types of effects, this is a great thing to do with your students as well, to really extend them to try and really match the sound as closely as possible. So that's what we just went through just to try and do that wave tape surfing, that first kind of synth line. We also got the other keys we can hear in there. Hear those keys underneath, the held chords? Very an 80s style synth sound coming across there. At the moment we have a Fender Rhodes type sound. So once again, if I click on the little keyboard here, we can see it's been a Fender Rhodes has been selected. Let's change that to a kind of synth. And if I go to synths, and maybe synths again, we can hear the caramel stabs is a good preset to start from. So initially students might just be going through and looking at through all of the presets that are available to them to find what is the most similar. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not cheating. That's a good way to go through, but it's unlikely they'll find the exact right sound as they go through the presets. They're going to have to adjust them all to a certain extent. So let's see what this caramel stabs sounds like. Currently it sounds nothing like it, so we will jump into the more options on the right hand side. And down here we're going to change the type of synths that we have. We're going to move it away from a triangle back to a saw wave. Now once I had to raise the cutoff there, that made it a little more obvious what was going on. So now I'm adjusting the cutoff and the resonance. I'm going to take the attack down a little bit. Increase our release and sustain. Okay, so we're getting there, and I can have a little bit of trouble with this one at the moment. I'm not quite getting it quite where I was liking it. Maybe I should have started with a different preset from the beginning, but it could be a mixture of types of oscillators as well. Rather than just two saws, maybe we want to bring in a little bit of a square wave. And we're starting to get something pretty similar to it. Keeping in mind, to try and find exactly the right kind of sound is going to be too much to expect for level 1 students. But on the whole, this process here, they should be able to get something which is pretty similar to it, reminiscent of the sound, and they should hopefully be able to describe what the differences. At the moment, if I listen to the original, there's still a little bit too sharp of an attack for me on the sound at the moment. The other sound kind of wobbles a little bit as it goes on as well. And that's because they're probably using the LFO as part of it as well to try and create a bit of movement within the timbre. We're not going to do LFO at level 1. I think it's too difficult for level 5 or 6 of the New Zealand curriculum to expect students to be learning about LFOs. That's more of an NCA level 2 or level 3 thing that hopefully we'll get to in the future. But this is one reason why I don't think with the tools we have available to us at the moment, we can get the sound exactly the same, but I think we're getting it pretty close. And if a student gets it this far, then that would be a clear excellence if they can justify their reasoning and how they got to there. Okay, so that's 2 of the tracks. I encourage you to also do the same thing with the bass track, and also to sit down and create their own drum beat as well. Do some finger drumming on the keyboard to put in the drum beat that we were hearing in the original full track. This part here. So to find the right kind of drum, sort of electronic-y type drum sound as opposed to acoustic type drum sound, to try and create that drum beat in there as well. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully if you watch this a couple of times and slow it down and pause and give things a go, if you spend an hour or 2 with this video, that's great. Hopefully you'll get a lot more out of this and feel a bit more confident than maybe you were after part of the sessions we had on Monday and Tuesday. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. More than happy to hear from you as well. And so, hope everything goes well for you.